Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sasha Chilkova. I'm a marketing manager here at Withum. And today we'll be talking about accelerating your process automation with low or no code forms technology. We also have a guest speaker from WebCon today. Before we get to that, I just want to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar. We'll try to keep the session to about 45 minutes. We have a demo to show you as well. So we'll save about 10 minutes for questions at the end. Don't hold back your questions. You can submit them throughout the presentation. We'll probably answer them closer to the end, and you can submit the questions in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar panel. And again, we will send out a recording and a link to the slide deck later this afternoon. And joining me today, I have Kalpana Sivanandan, Lamia Msadek, Fabian Williams from Withum, and then Mike Fitzmaurice from WebCon. So Kalpana, if you want to kick off the introductions, I think we are ready to get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Sasha. Hello, everyone. My name is Kalpana Sivanandan. I have been in Withum for about 8 years now, but in the Microsoft technology world for the past 20 plus years. I've done all life cycles of software development with agile methodologies. I am currently a technical project manager, and I have the great pleasure of working with WebCon, which is such an easy, cool tool for form and workflow automation. Lamia.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Lamia Msadek. I've been a Microsoft consultant for about 8 years. I am also similar to Kalpana, have been working in the Agile methodology as a advanced Scrum Master, a ProSci change practitioner as well. My main role at Withum Digital is a project manager and business analyst. I've also worked closely with WebCon, developing solutions for our clients, and we're excited to dive right in today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamia. Thank you, Kalpana. My name is Fabian Williams. I am the practice director for the Intelligent Process Automation, IPA, practice here at Withum Digital. IPA just basically means that it's the cross-section of where digital process automation and machine learning and artificial intelligence intersect. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for the category of Visual Studio Development Technology. Just means I write a lot of code. And I've been working with process automation for quite some time. Started off in SharePoint with SharePoint Designer and moving over into other technologies, including WebCon, which is a fantastic product. And that'll lead me over to my next introduction.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Fitzmaurice. I'm the Chief Evangelist and Vice President of North America for WebCon. You can reach me at mikefitz@webcon.com, and I occasionally blog on Medium at Mike Fitz. I've been involved in process automation for about 3 decades. It's kind of my specialty, but I have been involved with the wonderful world of anything involving servers and office technology, especially SharePoint, since, well, the mid to late 90s. So I was SharePoint before SharePoint was cool. No, SharePoint was always cool. I was SharePoint before SharePoint was SharePoint, back when it had code names and so on. I spent 10 years, 11 years at Microsoft, almost all of that time on the SharePoint team. But I've been doing workflow and business process automation for a very, very, very long time.
Thank you, Mike. So what to expect from today's webinar? I like to ensure that we have set objectives. So at the very end, you guys have an idea of the path that we took to get there. The first thing we want to do is ensure that everyone get to compare and contrast between what you can get out of the box, because I feel that it's certainly going to be important, especially if you're on an Office 365 subscription or tenancy, versus what you can get, of course, with WebCon from an independent software vendor, an ISV such as WebCon. I'm going to pivot over to Mike to discuss the features of WebCon and the uniqueness of that tool and the value proposition and when it brings to bear. And the following 3 bullet points are going to be framed, basically going to be framing the conversation around the demo. So you'll be able to get an idea and see instant results of implementing changes on the fly. So just how responsive WebCon is on demand and making those changes and having those changes be sticky, and how quickly you can generate system documentation without line of code. And that is certainly going to be helpful in terms of once you've delivered something into having something that you can have as an SOP, a standard operating procedure. And also how to take full advantage of the dynamic reporting capabilities that you have that are out of the box, certainly to help reducing bottlenecks. Sasha? Sasha, the poll?
Yes, sure. So we just wanted to get a little bit of information to see where you are. And first, we wanted to ask if you are already using an automation tool. Some may, some may not. Just wanted to gauge that. All right, thank you for those who are participating. It looks like we're split about 50-50. I'll just give it one more second. We got a decent amount of people who are not yet using a tool, so good place for you to be. And then for those who said they are using a tool, perhaps it would be one of these, either Microsoft Flow, a couple of other process automation providers, or other. And just give it a few more seconds. Also got a good mix of experience going on here.
That's great.
All right. Thank you for participating, everyone. That is good. So Fabian, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Before we get started, into the meat of the matter, the one thing I want to say is we're working under, extreme times here. We're facing, COVID-19 and the novel, coronavirus, and it's forced a lot of us to, rethink how we work, and also, how we school our children, how we interact at home in terms of pets, and so on and so forth. And it presents a unique situation where forms technology is very important at this point in time, because people are disconnected from that normal work environment. They're not in the office. So how do one interact? So forms play an important role with that. Before we get into that, I want to lay out the I guess a landscape, if you will, of just how business operate, and this should not be something far left field. I've never met an organization that's totally homogenous in terms of how they operate, in terms of everything goes into one bucket and everyone works from there. Oftentimes what you'll find is that one singular business can be operating in several different categories. Here at Witham alone, from a storage standpoint, I know that we certainly are a Microsoft shop, so we certainly use OneDrive for business. But because of the fact that we are split into a tax advisory and also a technical arm, we have people that are using Box. So in that area, you have 2 software as a service or SaaS providers that just centered around storage. And it won't be uncommon to see people using Microsoft Office, using line of business apps that are also on premises and also inside the cloud. And also using SharePoint portals along with collaboration software like Slack or Teams, and from a database management system using both Microsoft technology, SAP, and/or Oracle. So it should not be surprising that you have a variety of different line of business systems, a variety of different ways of actually conducting work. And as such, from a form standpoint, that means that you're looking at several different windows. You're looking at maybe a customized window portal into one of these backend systems. And one of the things that forms technology brings to you is a single pane of glass, one place for you to look at all of that system. But even before we get there, one of the things that Witham prides itself around in terms of our methodology is understanding that, right? Because especially if you're working in a disparate environment where you're working with different technologies, understanding how they come together as a whole, telling one story is important. So one of the philosophies that we do here at Witham is to discuss the concept of mapping everything that we're doing and mapping each process as well, so that one, we can get a good understanding of it. But what you'll often find as well, which goes to WebCon's benefit, is that things change, right? No matter if you make a process that is bulletproof and it's set and it's baked in, 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, you will always find rooms for improvement. And it would be certainly beneficial and easy for you to basically make that change on the fly. Now, Within that sphere, moving from level 1 to level 2, you can see here with them in terms of our process platform, we do a lot of work around forms, mobile, and workflow automation. And that's certainly going to be key, when Mike, speaks and when Kalpana does her demo as well, in terms of talking about forms technology and just how, responsive that can be, especially around multiple form factors, because you understand that people work from out of the office, they work on desktops, they work on laptops, they work outside of the office, potentially on tablets and on phones, and being able to make changes on the fly that can, form fit and give you the information that you need at any point in time is going to be certainly beneficial. And I know we're not going to speak today about document automation and e-signatures or robotics process automation, but that just basically fills out that circle in terms of just how Witham handles that. And in the end, once you've done all of that, being able to get process optimization with analytics is certainly going to be key. Now, just spending some time on just the forms piece of it, I did say in the onset that we're going to talk a little bit about compare and contrast Microsoft technologies to WebCon. And I'm not going to beat it to death, but I want to at least highlight, Power Apps, because Power Apps is definitely evolving as Microsoft's de facto forms technology in order to give you something that you can use. Because users, when they're interacting with these backend systems, as I mentioned before, come in two flavors. It's either you're consuming information from a system or you're putting information in a system. So having that user interface available to you to be able to capture the fields and the properties and respond to events like clicks or check boxes is going to be important. And the way that you interact with it from a Microsoft stack, especially if, as I mentioned, if you're using Office 365 or maybe a dynamic subscription, you're going to have Power Apps at your disposal. And if you can use, Excel, that they liken it to, if you can use Excel, you can certainly use Power Apps. Where I'd like to draw that the contrast, however, is that if you're working within the confines of Power Apps, you're able to come inside here and design a form, be able to attach to a data store or a data source, have those fields come on the design canvas, arrange those fields, and create some logic around it. But the story about automation means that you probably would have to now do another leap onto another technology, like maybe a Power Automate, right? Or maybe a Logic App, or maybe Azure Functions or something like that. So you don't really get an end-to-end solution, even though you may have a canvas that you can certainly work on, whether it's a Canvas app or a model-driven app, working on your desktop or your laptop or in an app. So that experience is certainly there. But what Microsoft gives you is a platform from which you can build on. What WebCon does provide for you is beyond that. So where the ISV steps in and add value is taking what you already have from Microsoft and then carrying that experience over into something that you can build on top of, and of course get a richer feature set. So this is an example here of a WebCon form. I know Kalpana is going to be showing you this in the demo, so I'm not going to steal too much of her thunder. But if you just look at the right-hand side alone, you can see a lot is there for you. It talks specifically around the main process, talks about the main form, talks even about the workflow. So you can see here in one area, you're able to impact that. Mike will probably mention this a little bit later, but I want to take some ownership of this. When I first saw WebCon, I mentioned to Mike, who I've known for a long time, as we're both Microsoft MVPs, I said, you know what this looks like is that the form is the process, and it also looks like the process is the form. And you're going to see that connect when Kalpana does her demo, and Mike goes a little bit deeper. But with that, that's a little bit my spiel in terms of talking a little bit about the compare contrast between what's out of the box and what's there from WebCon. So I'm going to punt it over a little bit now to Mike to talk a little bit about WebCon and what is WebCon BPS.
Why, thank you. Appreciate that. Fabian, thanks. That was a wonderful info and a very good observation. Yeah, you made that all, I think, the first time you saw me do a demo of WebCon BPS. What I will say is that the form and the process and the data all interrelate very, very tightly. A model's in charge of a WebCon application. You were contrasting us a little bit with the Power Platform. Look, I think there's room for everybody out there, but what's unique to WebCon is that you're not creating a form on a canvas and then binding the controls to data or binding the controls to formulas and stuff. Instead, you build an application model, and the model is in charge of what the forms are going to look like and what data requirements are and what the process flow is going to be. And that kind of means that when you make a change to a field, the form knows, the workflow knows. When you make a change to the workflow, the buttons on the form adapt. It's all nicely interconnected. And then deployment is really, really easy. So we're a low-code application platform. We like drag and drop and all that. And all of that is important, but a lot of people will make that claim, and legitimately so. What's different about WebCon is that not only can you make an application incredibly quickly, you can change it extremely quickly and evolve it very quickly and explain it to people very quickly. It's designed on the assumption that no one gets it right the first time. No matter how good you are, you'll suddenly, even if you ask for something, someone builds it with WebCon and you get exactly what you want, you're going to think of something else you wish it did. We built a platform that lets Witham and other people that are clever listen to feedback and act on it like that. We embrace change, and you're going to see a lot of that coming right up. Why don't we go to the next slide? This is, on the left, you're looking at a diagram that sort of kind of explains our architecture in a shield-like fashion or a coat of arms style fashion. Essentially, we built a workflow engine that is all about change, changeability and tracking and auditability. We thought of a lot of things that a lot of other platforms kind of do as an afterthought, but in our case, it's wired into the fundamentals. But our application environment involves forms and workflows and documents and reports and dashboards and, well, everything. And when you create it, it's designed to be surfaced either in a standalone web application or inside SharePoint or inside Teams or inside mobile apps, or it can even surface in Office add-ins and such. And look, we can connect to databases, web services, directory services, and so on and so forth. But when you build a web application, you can use it everywhere. And I believe we're going to see any and all of that in mere moments. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So one thing that I really wanted to mention is that Mike Fitzmaurice actually worked with us on a proof of concept. You were able to deliver very, very quickly, and Kalpana and I were able to execute from then on the full-on implementation. Now, the scenario that I'm going to refer to today is that we have a client who wanted a tool to fulfill very complex business needs that are evolving all the time. Essentially, they're a marketing team who managed all of their requests through Excel sheets, didn't have visibility into their own process. So we were able to leverage this tool to meet their business needs, to present a more flexible design with this solution so that they can easily maintain it. We did receive requirements of some basic needs, and WebCon was able to meet, if not exceed, these requirements. So some of the items here, requirements that I want to review, and you're going to definitely see it all in the demonstration, is the dashboard. First, the dashboard is really important for that visibility and reporting purposes. All out of the box, easy to configure, personalizable. Users can sort and filter their own views. They can add their own views, which is really awesome, really powerful, and clean graphical representation. And as Mike and Fabian keep stressing, the workflow and forms are very unique. All of it is in one UI. What does that give the client? It gives them easy change management so that any point if there's a change in their business, the way they work day to day, that can all be done in one UI, easy to maintain. The forms are designed to be simple, to be readable, to be responsive. So you can use it on your mobile phone or tablet. Printable, again, if you need to, for reporting purpose, to send it out and print it out for any purposes. Really awesome that you can search across all of your requests. They have a very powerful search engine as well. And our clients was definitely looking for something that was easy for people to track and search for their end users. And in addition to that, not just search, but for on their end, having a dev, test, and production environment, being able to make updates seamlessly in each of those environments, but across environments. Migrating takes maybe 5 minutes, if not less, and it's very, very straightforward. So again, they didn't want all the burden on their administrators, IT folks. They want something that's very easy to maintain. We're going to keep stressing that. And of course, architecture-wise, they wanted very seamless back-end connections, which WebCon provides, and we're a Microsoft shop here at Witham, so easily embedding in SharePoint, and a lot of our clients are looking for that. So SharePoint on-prem, SharePoint online, think of it as your web parts. It's all, you can all embed them in there. So with that being said, I am going to pass it on to my colleague Kalpana to go into the demonstration.
Awesome. Thank you. So Fabian, could you hold that for just a second before I switch to my screen? Or maybe it's too late. Okay. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes. I certainly see your screen.
Awesome. So what I quickly wanted to show is a simple form put together very quickly, but as you can see, it has this professional look. We did have some alterations made to the themes, but apart from that, it did not take us time to decide how we want to show the fields, where it should be on the form very quickly and easily. There are a couple of components. I wanted to start with the browser for end users, and then I will share the WebCon Studio where most of the magic is happening. So as you can see right here, you could very easily add your company's logo. This is the name of the application, project, whatever you want to call them. And then here you have left navigation, which is very similar to your site content structured in SharePoint, whatever you want to show. So it's seamless for end users to be able to have the same experience. So here you have a home. I'm going to start right there. So this is a dashboard that we put together. It's pretty quick and easy. I will come to how we create the dashboard as part of the WebCon Studio demo or even back here, but I just wanted to show you users would be able to come in at a quick glance. They will be able to see the most important things, like I want to create a new request. These are my pending tasks. I have some overdue tasks, new tasks that I need to act on. These are some of the requests in the queue, and you even have a beautiful dashboard, a pie one that you could put together so quickly. You have some reports. Those reports can be permission controls depending on who you want to see those reports as to who should be able to make edits, and it's all very simple. So going back to creating a new request, I am right here. I'm able to quickly add the information. I have a comment section right here, and then all the details. My right panel as you can see, has some generic information about this form itself. The information panel shows you what your project is, what type of form you're filling out. So these are all some things that can be easily changed, like Mike was saying, instant change is possible. You don't like the word main process, we can quickly go change it to whatever you want it to be. These are the workflow steps, and you see how it's bolded and it shows the arrow indicating that's where you are currently. So at any given point of time, you know where your request is and which stage it is in the workflow process, and there's more details to it. I am now going into Designer Studio. The next slide that Fabian had shown for a couple seconds has the overall high-level architecture of WebCon Studio. So WebCon Studio starts, if you look at the topmost level, it's the application level. So each WebCon server has this first high level, and then within that level, you could have multiple projects, process, whatever you want to call it. So that's how it is built out. Then inside each of the process, you have 3 categories: the workflow itself, where you can drag and drop and create your workflow tasks, actions. Then you have the actual form fields, and then the configuration that's going to be for the whole process. So I just want to start off with form fields first. And you could see at the top level, you could just see a list of all the forms fields that you have created. You can see the field types, the IDs, the database fields, that's where it's stored in the WebCon server, and the group. For technical people, this is very useful because you get a good view of everything. Mike, please jump in if you have anything to add to where I'm going with this.
Thanks, but you're doing great.
Okay, cool. So the first thing we want to do is, I want to just go and add a simple field. So I can just come right here, click on new field, and I can start adding my field. There's a lot of different types of data that you want to. The one that we like is the item list that gives you the grid experience. You could have different columns in there. It's all very simple and easy.
If you're an InfoPath person, think of this as like a repeating table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that helps. There might be some people on the call that are familiar with that.
Right. So I am just going to click on one of the fields that we already have configured. So it's a single line field, as you can see. I want that to either be a floating field or I can put it inside a group. Creating a group is very simple. You just have to click on form fields and create a new group. So that puts your fields together. You can just drag the group into the form and you're going to see all the fields right there. I'm going to just, for the sake of time, I'm running, but I want to show you how a choice field is set. It's so simple. You first go and pick the choice field. You have your data sources that you can choose from. I will talk about data sources as part of data sources, but that shows up right here. You can quickly do any kind of filters. It's all drag and drop. You see how you can say now the region should be something very similar to the form field. That's how you set your filter. And this is why we say pretty much no code, because it's already, you're always dragging and dropping stuff. And that's something I love about this too. Then there's this advanced configuration where these are all my data source columns. I can set target fields on my form based on the filter and the results that I get. You also have some more additional options when somebody starts typing in for your autocomplete. You can get very granular. I want it to contain, and so on and so forth. So
hey,
pretty much.
Can you go back to that first tab where you were mapping field results? I just want, yeah, this is perfect. I just want to highlight something, and this is one thing that WebCon does that's very different from the way a lot of other systems do it. If you had, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns that are being retrieved in addition to the ID. If you were doing this with most other platforms, you would wind up having 6 different fields on a form, each with their own lookup on how to fetch the data out of some lookup source somewhere else. With us, there's one field that's doing the lookup, and then it's going to drop the looked up data into 5 different extra fields. You only have to do the work once. That's a bit, we do little things like this all over the place.
And that's a big thing, as a developer, here, that's a big thing in terms of performance and usability, that you're going to get out of the box. And typically, developer speak is you get that for free. So, something that where something is provided to you and you get a benefit, an immediate benefit, but you get other ancillary things behind it to help you as well. That's a fantastic feature, Mike. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thanks. It's not just about making it easy to do this once. It's that if you later decide, oh, I actually need to make a change to the way the data is looked up, or I need to grab it from another place. You only need to make the change in one place, not 6.
Excellent point. Yes. Awesome. Thank you for that.
It's become normal and natural to you, Kalpana.
Yes, that's so true. When we say low code, it's something a simple SQL statement can powerfully bring you grid results and so on and so forth. We have a people field as well, very similar to all tools, and then here's the default value, which really is useful if you already know who the logged in user is going to be. This is something that we have used a lot. So those are some of the high-level field types that I just want to point out. But then now going across the fields, attributes, there's also attributes where you could set the visibility of the form. So some form fields are visible either for certain users or during certain stages in the workflow lifecycle. So you could easily set up drag and drop. Like I said, it's so easy to just click on these 3 buttons. You have all your functions, your values. You can start typing in an if-then statement right here, as simple as that, and set in the visibility restrictions. You can do the similar feature for editability. Who do you want to edit? When do you want a particular field to be required? So these are some things that you could drag and drop rather than having to write code. Similar to that, we have a style and behavior, and I think we have used it immensely in our project, especially when it comes to drop down. So if I'm changing the value of a drop down, I want certain rules to be executed. I want certain fields to change their colors or look different, and so on and so forth. So that's simple as well. I want to point you to these 2 fields and how much I love them. The technical fields are fields that you need on the form, but not really be visible, but to store in information for back-end processes. By making it a technical field, you're not doing anything more. You're just going to treat it as a regular field, but it's not going to show up on the form. So this is something we use immensely as well. The archive field is when you're just putting that field to the archive status. So that's the first one. So this is where you come in. This is where you're going to set all your form fields. The next one is the big one, the workflows. Each process can have one workflow. Sometimes there can be more than one workflow, but for our demo purposes, we have one workflow. You see how it has so many approval steps. It has approves and rejects, as well as it's moving from one stage to the other. It's looking for, does it need an approval or not? Based on that, and I would tell you, this was so easy to put together. you have your options right here. And all you need to do is drag and drop them, and then you double click and you start working on that particular path, or if you want to call it path or step, whatever you want to do it. So right here, when I told you, I don't like in my right panel, I don't like this to be preparation. I would rather call it something like a draft. All you have to do it is just do this and then save the process. And you should be able to quickly see when you reload that this is going to have draft right there. That's what we meant when it's instant change, and it takes place for all the forms that you already have in place. It's very similar to changing a name of the field or placing the field in a different order. It's very simple and straightforward. I want to take a couple minutes just to talk about this for any of the developers on the call. I just want to show you how simple and easy it is. Each step, you can also manipulate what fields you want to show and what fields you want to hide. And you have a couple options to do it. You could do it from here. Any page load behaviors you want to execute, you can put your rules, business rules right here. And then in that step, what are some of the actions I need to take? I want to save my form. I want to submit my form. I want to cancel a form. So these are the steps that you need to take. You can just add one and say, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So I can come here, I can quickly add my fourth button, action button, if my user says, well, yeah, we want this to have also another feature. So it's as simple as coming in and adding a path right here. You can configure, you can add additional validations. You should say something as, yes, I want the form to be validated when the user clicks the button, or you say, no, this is just a save, I do not want them. If you're rejecting something, you can say comment is required. It's as simple as that. The next one right here is the task creation. As soon as that button is clicked, it is going to my manager for approval, let's say. Then I can always either choose from the form field my manager if I have one, or I can say it always goes to my manager, and it's synced to your Active Directory. So you can always choose a person that you want to send this to, and then add them right here. It's as simple as that. You could have dynamic Azure AD groups as well, if you want to send it to a whole group of managers for review. The next tab right here is the Actions tab. If you can think of Actions tab as when I click on Submit, I want some functionalities to happen behind the scene. Like I want to send email notification to the requester saying your request was successfully submitted. Send a notification to my, I don't know, CEO that a new request is being, whatever you want to do, you can start adding actions. You can start clicking on the path. It's very simple, and you have some options right here. When I click submit, I want to change a single field value, or you have so many options right here. And then what I mean, you can just come and do this, and you can start adding a new step right here, and then you can start joining the path from here. I want it to go right here. It's as simple as that. You have your step and the path right here. I can call it test, and I can say, if I click on this path, it goes to the request approver. They have the option to color code, which I like. So anything you want to reject, I mean, these are simple things that makes a difference, right? When you're looking at it, you're seeing, approves are greens and rejects are reds. Anything I think I covered pretty much what I wanted to talk about workflows. Let me refresh, so I don't want to save my changes. All right.
Yeah, as you're going through to the next step, Kalpana, I want to say that what I'm seeing here, the first time I saw Mike demo this, I was totally blown away because in my experience, what you typically have is you have one place to design your form, one place to build your workflow, and then you have to stitch them together, and then one place to to review items, one place to make changes. This puts everything inside one encapsulated area where you don't have to be hopping and jumping and skipping around the place. Everything is coordinated. Everything is, like I said, color coded. A lot of the little things that people take for granted, like the validation, form field validation, built right in, inherent to the item, and just there for you to touch immediately as you're doing it without writing any code. And that's usually the clincher right there, because developers like myself are typical, are used to creating validation rules and then binding them to controls. This, you basically get it out of the box. So fantastic that you brought that to bear in your demo so far. Go ahead.
Yep. I know we're running out of time, so I just want to quickly talk about some of the business rules. You could have business rules, form rules right here, and then create them in one place, but then you can access them in your form fields that I had showed you, the 3 dots. So that's kind of a very cool feature. I then want to talk about data sources real quick.
Hey,
So
Kalpana,
just like, yes?
what if I want to hide certain fields or show them?
Awesome. Great question. I can show you how
I
to
know
do
that saved us a lot of time during our project.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Okay.
And thank you for this.
Yes. This is a cool, very cool feature based on where you are in a workflow step. You can show and hide the fields with just a simple click. And you have right below when it's visible, where it's read-only, but cannot be modified without JavaScript and the required. So it's this very cool page where you can set everything up. Thank you, Lamia.
This saves you a ton of formulas or scripts in order to do conditional display logic. Basically, you're looking at steps in the process and the workflow across the top, fields in the form along the side, and what do you want to see when, and how do you want to see it? Click, 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 done. And really easy to change.
And from an audit standpoint, if you needed to show somebody, who can see what, when, and where, and what they can do, here's one place that you can actually go and say, here is my solution. Here's what people can affect change on, when and where as well. So, fantastic way, in a holistic area where it's not disjointed.
Yep. Awesome. So here I want to quickly talk about the multitude of options you have for connection strings. So you could connect to various sources. As you can see on the left navigation, you have your SQL database, your Oracle, SOAP web service, REST web service, SharePoint, whatever you want to. So we have some sample connections here, and then right below, you create your data sources using the connection from above. And here again, for data sources, you have a lot of different options. You have the internal view, which is basically pulling data from the WebCon database itself. Fixed list is just something that it's like a name value pair. You could just, for your drop downs or anything, you can just say simple drop down values that you can think of, right? So anything that is very simple does not need too much of maintenance, but you need one place to store them. This is where you come to add your fixed list. So that's one.
On that note, let me just flesh it a little bit more, because I don't want to like oversimplify what we just said right there. So oftentimes in other tools that I've used, when you're building a solution, you'll often find the data stores that you need to connect to, like Kalpana is talking about there, the different line of business systems. But you may actually come in a situation where you need to capture information where there is no backend for it. So what do you do then? Do you go create a backend for it and then create the form for it? Here, what you're able to do on the fly in place is to create an object, if you will, that represents that, the information you're trying to capture, and then into the system you have access to that. So don't take that for granted. That is actually something that's a gotcha in other solutions that are out there, because you don't have the capability to build a data store on the fly. Go ahead, Kalpana, sorry.
Yep, no, that's a valid point. And here we have very similar to fixed list. Here you could have something as a SQL query, write something as simple as this, and there you go. When you test it, you should have, the names of countries right there. You see the result. And then if you remember, we showed you the drop down. You could connect to this data source, and then, the country type and any of these columns can be mapped to any of the fields that's on the form, and that's how we do this data source connectivity. This is one of the very cool features that we have used a lot for our clients. The data dictionary piece, think of it as a SharePoint list. End users have the permissions, business users, it depends on who you want to give permission to go in and make changes. Like some of the data sources that you've seen so far is backend, where you need a studio administrator or a developer to go make changes. What if there is a list that is going to be changing periodically and you do not want to contact your IT? You create these dictionary lists or reports, if you will, which is very easy and quick, and then you save the information there. So if you want to change it down the road, you can do that as part of your reports right here. We can create a report for you. You can just go and manipulate the data based on how you want that. So that's a very cool feature that we've used a lot.
The other big payoff to dictionaries is that when you go to deploy this application from dev to test to production, the dictionary goes with the application. You don't need to make sure that you've created a bunch of SharePoint lists in a target site in advance, or set up target databases if you're using SQL Server for data storage or something. This is lookup data that comes along for the ride, and it's part of the overall application deployment. And of course, when you change them, everything changes with it.
Yep. So here are some of the system settings, the global settings. It's pretty straightforward. This is where the AD sync happens. It's all buttons, and it's very simple. Here's where you say what Active Directory you want to connect it to, and then you can do your syncs. You can see your sync history for admins. This is a great place to come in. Here's your mail settings that you want to do. Here are some service configurations, some of the local services and their statuses. If something failed, you can come and take a look and see why something failed and fix the issues. And I want to talk 2 things before I stop sharing. As an admin, now I have a couple of great tools here. I can export my application, as Mike was saying. This whole application that I've been working on can be exported into a single file and imported into a different server. It takes probably 10 minutes to do that whole action, and it's so seamless. That's a great feature we've been using. The next one I want to talk about is, okay, I have so many forms, fields. If you remember, we have to create documentation for our clients so that it's easy for them to manage. So you are going and spending hours trying to put in your tables, formatting the document, throwing in all the business rules, explaining. Well, guess what? You don't have to do that anymore with WebCon. You just click this button, and here you go. It's all right here, beautifully coded. I'm not opening Word, so you may see some things are not very pretty, but you get the point. So it tells me under this group, I have the fields. This is the data type of the fields. Here are some of the SQL queries that the fields are using. This saves people a lot of time. It gives you the rules that you have set for each of the fields, and so on and so forth. Lastly, I just want to talk about reports. I know we're running. Sasha, are we good on time? How are we doing?
We have about 10 minutes.
Okay. So I'm just going to briefly, quickly talk about the dashboards and reports. It is so easy to put together a dashboard. As if you're admin or if you have privilege to edit, all you have to do is enable edit mode right on your browser. You don't have to go into Webcon Studio. This is very similar if you have worked in SharePoint. It is very similar to your SharePoint web page. You just have to click on this and you pick what you want to add. You have all your options right here, what you want to embed. If you want to embed a report, you can most certainly embed a report right here like this, and you just click apply. You see your report right there. You can add, like this is something that we added, but this is out of the box, task counter. You can have a Power BI reports if you want. If you have more than one process in your application, you can add all those processes right here. These are reports, so you would probably, your first step will be to create a report, configure a report, then it can be used in the dashboard. We had already created this report, and as you can see, you can also swap by disable. I can show you, what did I do? Disable, yes. If you have more than one view, you can even give the option to the user to see multiple views of the report. So how do you create report? Reports are very simple. You click right here on the left navigation. This is your edit option. You have your source. You can pick your source right from here. You can set some mandatory filters right here. And the next one is the columns. You can click right here and you can say, oh, I want to show all these columns in my report, or I want to remove them. I want to move them up or down, move them to the top. You can add calculated columns. You can do some default sorting. You can do all that for the columns, but the best part comes right here. This is where I can create different views. I can start creating either a table view or a chart view. As I'm creating a chart view, I have different types of options that I can create from. And it's very simple. All I did was, choose this. And if I save, I should be able to see it I should be able to add it to my dashboard. Mike, do you want to? Anything you want to jump in and talk?
All I want to say is this dashboard is made up out of discrete components. Each of these components you're seeing as a widget in one of our dashboards, but each of these components is actually also displayable inside of SharePoint as a web part, or also displayable inside of Teams as a tab. So when you build these, they're actually meant to be reused over and over and over again. And if you like going to our portal for our dashboards, look, that's great. You're not limited to our content. You can also embed, we don't have time for this, but you can also embed Power BI reports in here right alongside our own stuff.
Right.
So you can take the data to where your users are rather than having the users come to your world or vice versa. So from
Right.
from an adoption or usability standpoint, is whatever your users are accustomed to, there's a place for them, and the tool provides them ease of use from build once and you reuse many times.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Was that what you wanted to
Back to
cover
you.
today, Kalpana?
Yep, back to you, Fabian. Thank you.
Back to me. Okie dokie. Let me find myself to switch me. Make presenter. All right. Can you see my desktop? Am I sharing? Hold on. Yeah,
Not yet.
Not sharing.
I know. I'm trying to share.
It's all right.
I am trying to share. Why is this not sharing? Oh, come on. It's just beeping at me. Oh, why? Nope. Technical. Does anyone else have this? They can share. So I can just. We're just gonna go to Q&A, but I can't get my computer onto it.
Yeah, I can probably do it in a second. There we go.
All righty. So as Mike is flipping over, hopefully what you've got from today's presentation, we started off talking about disparate systems, different line of business systems. We talked about forms technology, and we talk about the compare contrast between what potentially could be out of the box with something like a Microsoft using Power Apps. But certainly, as we saw in the polling, we had a few different people using different technologies as well. One of the value propositions and the thing that WebCon BPS brings to the table is the fact that you have in one application, in one suite of product, in one tooling, I should say, you have the ability to create quick, responsive forms that you can change on the fly, that can connect to various data stores, that you can actually have business rules written in. You have the ability to triage and configure and show and hide different controls, different forms, different capabilities, all in one place. So once Kalpana started her demo, she didn't leave, close down the application, go into something else. She showed you and built everything inside one screen. So from an adoption standpoint, from a usability standpoint, that speaks volumes. From a rapid prototyping and rapid delivery, this certainly is going to do it much faster than any other solutions can do. I know we have like around 3 minutes left, so I want to open it up for questions. Actually, I see we have one question here. It says, let me just, and again, my computer's beeping, so I can't do it. It won't even allow me to click into it. Can somebody read the question and then we can answer it?
Yeah, sure. They were asking if we've ever done any ROI calculation comparing WebCon and out-of-the-box Power Automate app for any of our clients that could be used as an example.
Yep, that's exactly what we did for our client that we have referenced, and we had to do an ROI comparing some of the trending, including Power Apps as well. So definitely we had to do that, and just to compare costs, also feature functionality.
Yeah, and we actually have a paper coming out soon written by Forrester that's on the total economic impact of using WebCon. We'll make sure our friends at Witham know about it and that you know about it too. So there will be easy ways for you to get a hold of that report. The other thing I probably want to point out that I think is of no small importance is WebCon loves Microsoft. WebCon is not about bypassing Microsoft. WebCon is actually written on .NET, written with IIS, written with Windows Server, written with SQL Server. We are hardcore Microsoft people. That said, we kind of view the difference between using WebCon technology versus, say, the Power Platform as the successful Power Platform projects we've seen in the wild tended to be about scratching a personal itch. Someone built an application for themselves, which means you know how it works. You didn't have to document it for someone else. You didn't need to make it easy for someone else to crawl inside your head. You also didn't need to deploy it because you built it where you wanted it to be. And you also knew where everything was, so changing something wasn't so hard. WebCon's all about building applications for other people, so being able to make sure they are easy to document, easy to understand, easy to get comments from people on, and easy to make changes to adapt to those comments, and easy to deploy to other locations, everything else. Auditing, normally something you don't care about when you're building an application for yourself, but it's absolutely something you care about when you're building an application for everyone to use. So many of these things, they're built into the platform. You don't have to write them yourself. And the common thread to all of this is we assume that the person building something with WebCon DPS is building an application for other people to use.
Fantastic. I think we're coming up on time. Sasha, do you want to close us out in terms of when we're going to make the recording and everything else available?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That was good. Yeah, we'll getting the slide deck ready and the recording ready to go out this afternoon. And Mike, thanks for telling us about that book with Forrester. We certainly will keep an eye out for that. That would be helpful to share as well.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And Mike, thank you for being here today too.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lamia. Thank you, Kalpana.
Thanks.
Take care.